Toronto is a city that's changing, and at the center of that, or more accurately at the south of that, is the city's waterfront. But what you may not know is that the city is in the midst of one of the most impressive construction projects on the continent, to build an entirely new island at the center of a wholly rethought district, the Portlands. The district has provision for tramways, cycle tracks, and many large public spaces, and it's surrounded by all manner of other transportation infrastructure, like regional and intercity rail. So when I got the chance to tour the massive site last week, I jumped at it. Come along and let's take a look at the Portlands. When heading to the Portlands, my preferred method is the 504A streetcar route along King Street, which turns south before the Don River to travel along one of the only dedicated streetcar right-of-ways that isn't on the 509, 510, or 512, which are all entirely undedicated right-of-way. Part of this area is known as the Canary District, and was built as the athletes' village for the 2015 Pan Am Games, and it can give you a good idea of the type of things you're likely to see when the Portlands is complete in terms of urban form and street design. As it turns out, the streetcar loop here, despite being quite new, is likely living on borrowed time. Once a final plan is decided, the signal tower, historically used to control the rail corridor into Union Station, will be moved, and a new underpass will be built to extend this route right onto the new island. For now, we headed down Cherry Street on foot, and crossed the old and quite decrepit-looking Old Cherry Bridge over the Keating Channel, which is currently how the Don River reaches Lake Ontario. Once we were signed in and had all of our PPE together, we started touring, and wow, not only is the scale of the site truly massive, we walked several kilometers just doing a single loop around, but there are also many different independent projects going on all at once, and it's hard to keep track of them all. The first thing we went to look at are the new bridges that will replace the old Cherry Bridge along a realigned Cherry Street further to the west. These new bridges are really beautiful in their red and white, and were shipped all the way from Halifax, though the curved arches, curved in 2 dimensions actually, had to be manufactured in Rotterdam, which is far from the only Dutch influence on this area. The main bridge will feature space for pedestrians and cyclists as well as road lanes. Now, if you're wondering, the second smaller bridge to the side is for streetcars, which will naturally be extended south along Cherry, and might someday go all the way to Cherry Beach to the south and the Leslie Barnes to the east. What's nice is that in the meantime, this bridge could be used for buses on a dedicated right-of-way, much better than waiting in traffic, which is common in some other new neighborhoods like Liberty Village. Heading east along Villiers Street, we reach the foot of the Don, where a ton of work is going on. This was previously the site of a huge eastern ramp, the Gardner Expressway, which was removed and is now just home to the bridge for Lakeshore Boulevard. Unfortunately, the existing bridge is not nearly wide enough to cross the new, much wider river that will be built from here, so it's being sequentially replaced with 2 new bridges which will be roughly twice as long. Just to the northeast is the massive East Harbor development site that will be home to a number of office towers in the future, as well as a major new regional rail and subway station. So, I mentioned the new river. What's with that? Well, probably the primary objective of the works we'll see today are about building a new mouth for the Don River that doesn't just turn 90 degrees and become a channel, which, surprisingly, not really, can lead to flooding issues as fast-moving water is forced to make an extreme turn. The amazing thing is that everything in this project has been tailored around making sure that the new river valley can help protect from flooding, but can also become a thriving green space. From here we entered the river valley itself, and it is just incredible how large it is. It's really hard to get a sense from the pictures, so we will try to do our best here. If you're wondering, this large rock is meant to protect the valley from winter ice, which could cut into the soft new riverbed, while at the same time it also protects from that ice damming up the river. But there isn't just one type of rock being used either. Throughout the river, different types of rock have been used to encourage different plant and animal species to take up living in the area. Looking at the Commissure Street Bridge, you can see that the space off to the right, and where we were just filming the Don River's current course, is all going to be underwater in the next few years, and the bridge really does give you a good sense for the scale of the massive valley, which is designed to accommodate more water, rather than the more traditional build a concrete channel and get the water as fast away as possible methods. As you can see, the bridge is in the same style as the Cherry Street ones, but with roughly twice the length. Heading up to the bridge, we can see a carp gate off to the side, which, when finished, will prevent large fish from getting into the smaller wetland areas which border the main river valley, and mucking the place up. These wetland areas also have a dual purpose of allowing the river valley to accommodate even more water in the worst-case flood events, and you can see dead trees have been placed here to form future wildlife habitat, creating different temperature zones within, while other trees have been stood up to create perches for birds. The existence of this bridge is also a reminder that the land to the west is soon going to be an island, which will be called Villiers Island after the street we were just walking on. From here, we walked along what will be the new Commissure Street, and even saw one of those trees which is being turned into a habitat being taken to one of the many sites. Heading along, we came to a heritage-listed firehouse that had been shifted in order to accommodate the new road, which will be quite wide given the dedicated space for streetcars, eventually meant to go all the way to Leslie, as well as cycle tracks and pedestrian space you'd expect. What's nice though about the firehouse is the building can now form a focal point for the new North River Valley Park. And you can start to see the park being formed, with the river meandering and new pedestrian bridges crossing over it. What's cool is that thanks to the design of the space, the wetlands are separated from the main river valley by levees in many places, and here you'll be able to walk along it with water on both sides by using these bridges. As you can see, there's already a lot of green here, and planting has been going on and is continuing at a really rapid pace. A burlap material as well as a gradual stepping is being used to help plants, which naturally are planted to best adapt to whether they are fully underwater or at the waterline, establish roots so that they'll hold the riverbank in place. Because unlike a natural river that moves over time, the new Don is meant to stay in the same location. And so a lot of care and dead trees are used to protect the shoreline, particularly in the outer corners where water will be moving the fastest, and thus has the greatest chance of eroding it away. You can also see the really nice large stepped stones, which are designed to allow people to go right down to water level and perhaps sit and eat a snack, or casually watch a YouTube video. What's really awesome about the whole Portlands area is that unlike most of Toronto, you can actually see the skyline from the waterfront perspective, seeing the many new towers built in recent years that are blocked from other places by the traditional skyline to the north. As we travel a little further along, we can see the beginnings of the new Commissure Street being formed, with utilities being installed. All of these pipes are actually needed to dewater the soil, so trenches to lay the new pipes and the like can be excavated without them filling with water. That water is then treated on site. As it turns out, a lot of effort all over the place needs to be taken to keep the water back and work around it. The large piles of soil you see, for example, are there to compress the ground and reduce the risk of settlement on future construction. There are also various walls and barriers constructed at the ends of the river valley and in other places to keep the water at bay. You might be wondering, how do they get power and water and all the other utilities to this new island if it's, well, going to be an island? And there's a very cool answer to that, which are these giant shafts connected to tunnels dug by tiny little TBMs that will be used to house and connect the area to broader networks. Now, something you may or may not have noticed is that everything is quite tall compared to the surrounding ground, from the bases of bridges to utilities and poles and the like. And that's because the ground level of the whole area is going to be raised, again in a bid to protect from flooding, which would be pretty awkward in the neighborhood that's meant to help prevent it. The question everyone has about the river valley is, well, are they going to have some big dramatic live-streamed river flooding event where they remove the walls and water rushes in? Well, no, because that would be a great way to damage a lot of the important work that's been done here. Instead, the water level will be gradually increased until it aligns with the lake level, and the downstream walls will come out first. The other question everyone always asks is, when can I actually come and enjoy this place? With all of the Portlands 2024 signs, you might expect it's a few years out, but the good news is you can come here right now. While there still is a massive amount of construction going on, the roads through the Portlands are open, albeit with lots of detours and the like. Perhaps more excitingly though, the new Cherry Street South Bridge in its bright yellow is open. And not only does it have the same consistent styling as the other bridges, but since it's in use, you can actually get a sense for what the others will look like when they're done. And the wide sidewalk and cycle track are really nice, even if you just want to take some pictures of the skyline. So with that, we have the Portlands. A huge thank you to the Waterfront BIA and Waterfront Toronto for organizing this tour, and definitely come check the works out when you're in the area.